Have you ever stopped to consider the possibility that the world you live in, the people around you, your circumstances, your future, isn't just happening to you, but rather through you? What if I told you that every thought you've ever had is a blueprint? Not just an idle whisper in your mind, but a force shaping the very ground you walk on? This isn't motivational fluff. This is where psychology, quantum theory, and ancient philosophy collide. And the implications are not only profound, they're terrifying. Because if it's true, then you are not just living in the world. You are building it. The world you think you see. Let's start here. You wake up. The ceiling is the same as yesterday. Your phone is there. Messages, deadlines, breakfast. You see the world around you as familiar, solid, external. But here's the twist, nothing you perceive is happening outside of your mind. Everything you see is reconstructed by your brain. The light entering your eyes is raw data. Your brain turns it into a world. That world, the one you call real life, is filtered, shaped, and colored by your beliefs, expectations, and memories. You don't see the world as it is. You see the world as you are. So already, from the moment you open your eyes, your thoughts are not passive, they're sculpting your reality. But let's go deeper. The thought loop. Imagine this. You have a single thought, I'm not good enough. Maybe it came from childhood, a breakup, a quiet moment of self-doubt. It's just a thought. But now, you look at the world through that lens. A friend doesn't call back? Rejection. Someone compliments you? They're probably lying. An opportunity shows up? You hesitate because deep down, you know you're not ready. The thought becomes your emotional reality. And the emotional reality becomes action or inaction. Eventually, your outer life begins to reflect the story you're telling yourself inside. Less success. Less connection. Less risk. And then you say, see? I was right. But you weren't right. You were powerful. You created evidence to match your inner world. Not because you're broken, but because your mind is that powerful. The brain doesn't care about truth. Neuroscience tells us something disturbing, your brain isn't built to tell the truth. It's built to confirm your existing beliefs. This is called confirmation bias. If you believe people are generally selfish, your brain highlights every selfish act. If you believe the world is cruel, you'll tune into pain. It's not that the world is changing, it's that your focus is. Your thoughts are the filter. Your beliefs are the spotlight. And reality? That's just the stage you light up. So let me ask again, what kind of world are you building without realizing it? Quantum strange. Now we dip into science. Real science. Not the pseudoscience you see quoted on social media. At the quantum level, the level of atoms and subatomic particles, reality gets weird. One of the most famous experiments in physics is the double-slit experiment. It shows that the very act of observing a particle changes its behavior. Not metaphorically. Literally. When you look, it becomes a particle. When you don't, it acts like a wave. What does that mean? It means that observation, consciousness, changes physical reality. That sounds absurd. But it's repeatable. Measurable. Real. Now, scale that up. What if your everyday attention is doing the same thing, just on a more subtle level? What if your thoughts, your focus, your expectations are bending probabilities toward the reality you expect? Some physicists believe consciousness might be a fundamental force, not just a byproduct of the brain. If that's even partly true, then your mind isn't just reacting to the universe. It's part of the code. Ancient wisdom already knew. Long before science, sages, mystics, and philosophers were already telling us this. The Buddha said, with our thoughts, we make the world. The Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. The Upanishads declared, you become what your deepest desire is. These weren't just poetic lines. They were observations. Warnings. Codes to a hidden mechanism of existence. They knew. Now, science is beginning to catch up. But in the modern world, drowned in distractions, most of us forget. We treat thoughts as background noise. We let them run wild. We believe what we're thinking without questioning it. And then we suffer. Not because the world is cruel, but because we keep telling it to be. The unseen consequences. Here's the cruel twist. When you think negatively about yourself, about others, about life, you don't just color your experience. You begin to change your behavior. Your posture. Your tone. Your choices. And those changes ripple outward. You affect other people. You create ripples of belief, judgment, fear, or possibility, without ever opening your mouth. Thoughts have a frequency. They become energy. And energy is contagious. Ever walk into a room and feel the tension? You didn't imagine it. That was unspoken thought, filling the air like smoke. Now imagine what happens when you walk through life unaware of what you're thinking, unaware of the atmosphere you're spreading, unaware that you're constantly broadcasting signals that shape how people respond to you, what opportunities come your way, and how your future unfolds. That's not superstition. That's your mind, building a world, one thought at a time. Cliffhanger for next part. So now, you're faced with a question. If your thoughts are this powerful, if they're literally creating your experience of reality, then what would happen if you chose them deliberately? What would happen if you rewrote the internal script, and stopped being the victim of unconscious thinking? Would the world change? Or would you change? In part 2, we dive into that transformation. We'll explore what happens when you learn to control your thoughts. Not with toxic positivity, but with radical awareness. We'll uncover how the mind can either be your prison, or your blueprint for freedom. You're not ready for what's coming next. But your thoughts are already waiting for it. Part 2, the prison and the blueprint. Previously, we exposed a disturbing truth: your thoughts aren't just fleeting mental chatter, they're the architects of your reality. Whether you're aware of it or not, your mind is designing the life you live. But if that's true, then we're all walking around with a kind of superpower, and most of us are misusing it. The prison of unconscious thinking. Let's be honest. Most of what you think every day, up to 90%, isn't new. It's recycled. Habitual. Looped. Like a broken record in the back of your head. Wake up. Think about what went wrong yesterday. Worry about what might go wrong tomorrow. Judge yourself. Judge others. Wonder what they're thinking about you. Repeat. This is the prison. And it has no bars, no guards, no alarms. Just thought patterns, deep grooves in the mind, etched by repetition, emotion, and belief. And the more you follow them, the deeper they get. This is why people change jobs, relationships, cities, and still feel stuck. Because the prison isn't out there. It's in here. Identity, the most dangerous thought of all. There's one kind of thought more powerful than any other. It's the one that begins with the words, I am. I am anxious. I am not lovable. I am just lazy. I am not the kind of person who can do that. Each time you say those words, you're not describing reality, you're creating it. You're not just making a statement. You're locking yourself into a character in a story, often a story you didn't even write. Maybe your parents planted it. Or a cruel teacher. Or society. Maybe it was just one bad day, one moment you misinterpreted, and you've been living under its shadow ever since. And now, your mind filters the world through that story. Rejects anything that contradicts it. Accepts anything that confirms it. That's not identity. That's a thought pretending to be the truth. The blueprint begins with awareness. So how do you break the cycle? Not with affirmations you don't believe. Not with fake positivity. The first weapon is awareness. Sit still for a moment. Listen to your thoughts. Don't try to change them. Just watch. Like a scientist observing a strange new creature. You'll start to see patterns. Loops, scripts. Voices that sound suspiciously like your parents. Or your younger self. Or fear, wearing your voice like a mask. Once you see the pattern, it begins to lose its power. The prison door opens a crack. Because you can't fight what you can't see. And you can't change what you won't face. The two wolves, a choice in every moment. There's a famous story. Maybe you've heard it. An old Cherokee tells his grandson. There's a battle between two wolves inside us all. One is fear, anger, jealousy, greed. The other is joy, love, hope, peace. Which wolf wins, the boy asks. The old man answers. The one you feed. It's not just a cute metaphor. It's biology. Every time you choose a thought, you're reinforcing a neural pathway. Think it once, it's a spark. Think it again, it's a wire. Think it 100 times, it becomes a superhighway in your brain. So when you constantly choose fear, that becomes your default. But when you start choosing hope even when it feels weak, even when it feels fake, that becomes easier too. Slowly. Quietly. Neuron by neuron. Your brain rewires. Your emotions follow. Your actions shift. The blueprint starts to change. The illusion of control versus the power of direction. Here's a hard truth. You can't always control what thoughts arise. They appear. From childhood. From trauma. From society. From the noise of the world. But you can choose what you feed. You can't stop the thought "I'm not good enough" from arising once. But you can choose whether you believe it. Whether you repeat it. Whether you act on it. That's the difference between reaction and creation. You become the architect when you stop assuming every thought is true and start choosing which ones you'll build your life upon. And no, it's not easy. This is not magic. This is mental work. Emotional labor. The most sacred kind. You are unlearning 1,000 years of inherited fear. You are rewriting programs passed down through generations. You are standing against the tide of every message that ever told you to shrink, conform, or submit. But once you start even just a little, you'll feel it. The prison walls begin to fall. The mirror effect. Here's what no one tells you. When you change how you think, people start treating you differently. Not because they've changed. But because you have. Confidence, self-respect, boundaries, creativity, they aren't just attitudes. They are signals. People pick up on them unconsciously. They feel your energy before they hear your words. If your inner world is a war zone, others will feel it even if you smile. But when your mind becomes a place of power, peace, or clarity, the world begins to mirror it back. This isn't mystical. It's practical. You attract what you broadcast. You repel what you fear. You create feedback loops, sometimes healing, sometimes toxic, all based on the quality of your thinking. So ask yourself, what kind of mirror are you standing in front of? And do you like what it's reflecting? Toward conscious creation. So here's the new possibility. You are not your thoughts. You are the one watching them. And you have the power to choose which ones you build with. You don't need to force positivity. You need to practice presence. Because in the silence beneath your thoughts, there is something else waiting. Not fear. Not doubt. But clarity. Intention. Power. The kind of power that builds empires or rewrites lifetimes. What's next? In part 3, we go deeper. What happens when enough people begin to do this, not just individually, but collectively? Can changing your thoughts ripple out into society, culture, even history? Are we shaping not just our world, but the world? The answer might not comfort you. But it will change you. Part 3, the thought field of humanity. So far, we've explored how individual thoughts shape personal reality. How your inner monologue becomes your life script. But now, we ask a more dangerous question. If your thoughts create your world, what happens when billions of thoughts collide? What happens when entire populations think the same way about fear, power, money, race, borders, love? Welcome to the thought field. And it's more real than you've been led to believe. Collective reality, the invisible network. Take a moment and picture this, millions of minds, all thinking at once. Not quietly, but broadcasting. Non-stop. Fear, hope, resentment, pride. Every thought charged with emotion becomes an electromagnetic signal. And just like gravity pulls on mass, thoughts pull on minds. What if the world we live in, wars, politics, culture, technology, isn't just the result of decisions and events, but the accumulation of thought energy across generations? An invisible atmosphere of belief. Think of how many people believe there's not enough. Not enough time. Not enough money. Not enough love. Scarcity isn't just an economic model. It's a mindset that turns into policy, greed, hoarding, fear. Now imagine if millions believe violence is the only way to be heard. That belief gets written into laws, worshipped in history, romanticized in media. Ideas don't stay in minds. They become systems. And systems shape the world. Memes aren't jokes, they're viruses. In 1976, biologist Richard Dawkins coined the term meme not for internet humor, but for ideas that replicate like genes. Memes are contagious thoughts. Stories. Symbols. Values. A meme doesn't need to be true to spread. It only needs to be sticky. Success means fame. Money equals worth. Some people are more human than others. These are memes. Not facts. But they're everywhere. Passed down like DNA, reinforced in schoolbooks, whispered in advertisements, tattooed into culture. You didn't choose them. You inherited them. And if you're not aware, you'll live inside them forever. That's not freedom. That's sleepwalking. The psychic smog. You've probably felt it. A heaviness in the world. A background anxiety. A kind of fog, even when your own life is going fine. That's not just your mood. That's the atmosphere of collective thought. Every city has it. Every country. Every subculture. It's the unspoken rules, the emotional weather, the subtle pressure to conform to whatever normal looks like there. Stay small. Hustle. Obey. Hate the other side. Fear the unknown. Psychic smog. And it's why some people travel and suddenly feel alive. It's not the vacation. It's the escape from a thought field they didn't know they were trapped in. But you don't have to travel to escape. You just have to wake up. Culture isn't destiny, it's repeated thought. We tend to think of culture as fixed. That's just how things are. But culture is just the most popular thought, repeated over time until no one questions it. Take slavery. For centuries, it was considered normal, even righteous, by millions. Take women's rights. For millennia, people believed women were property. These weren't objective truths. They were thoughts repeated until they hardened into law, tradition, and religion. Then, a few people thought differently. They challenged the prevailing thought field. Risked exile, violence, death. And the world began to shift. This is how change happens. Not with weapons. But with minds. Radical thought is the first act of revolution. The internet, a thought accelerator. We are now more connected than at any point in human history. But what are we connecting? Thoughts. Tweets, posts, likes, articles, debates, fears, outrage, hope. It's a digital bloodstream of belief, pouring through your mind 24/7. And like any bloodstream, it affects your body, your chemistry, your mood. You're not just scrolling. You're absorbing. So the real question is, who's programming your mind? Who benefits from the thoughts you think? Who profits when you feel helpless, divided, angry? It's not always sinister. But it is strategic. Because if you control the thought field, you control the future. Group consciousness, it's already happening. You might be thinking, okay, but how real is this? Isn't this just poetic? Actually, no. Studies in psychology show that group meditation can reduce crime rates. Shared intention can shift heart rates between people. Coordinated thinking can sync brainwaves even among strangers. On a micro level, you felt it. A concert. A protest. A wedding. A funeral. Emotions ripple. Thought becomes electric. Now scale that to millions of minds. What happens if a generation decides to believe in healing instead of revenge? In abundance instead of scarcity? In unity instead of separation? The world doesn't just change socially. It changes energetically. That's not wishful thinking. That's physics meeting consciousness. Your mind is a transmitter. Here's the part you can't ignore. You are always sending out thoughts. And always receiving them. Whether you know it or not, your internal world contributes to the global frequency. So when you sit quietly and heal your own mind, your own stories, you're not doing nothing. You're adjusting the collective thought field. That's not spiritual fluff. That's how resonance works. You don't need to change the world. You need to stop feeding the distortion. The future depends on new thought. Every great shift in history began with a thought no one else was willing to think. That king isn't divine. Maybe the earth orbits the sun. Maybe all humans are created equal. These weren't safe ideas. They were dangerous. Radical. They threatened systems. But they were also necessary. And right now, we are facing a crisis of imagination. A war of thought. The question is, what are you imagining? Because that's what you're feeding. The final turn. We've looked at personal thought. We've examined the collective field. Now we must ask the hardest question of all. If your thoughts are creating reality, both private and public, then what responsibility do you hold, right now, in what happens next? Not out there. But in your own head. Because the future won't be built in factories. It won't be decided by algorithms or politicians. It will begin, as it always has, with a single, powerful thought whispered inside a human mind. Maybe yours. Coming next. In Part 4, we uncover the mechanics of transformation. How do you actually shift your thinking after years of programming? What tools, practices, and inner technologies can you use to reclaim authorship over your mind? This is where philosophy meets action. Where science meets spirit. You've seen the architecture. Now it's time to build. Part 4, The Blueprint of Becoming. You've followed the path this far, through personal thought, through inherited belief, through the collective mind of humanity. And now we arrive at the final threshold. What does it take to truly transform the world your thoughts are creating? Not in theory. Not in abstraction. But in you. Right here. Right now. This part isn't for the curious. It's for the brave. Because transformation is not about adding more to who you are. It's about undoing everything you were never meant to carry. The illusion of fixing versus the power of seeing. Let's begin with something you need to hear. You don't need to fix your mind. You need to see it. Fixing implies brokenness. That something is wrong with you. That you must patch yourself up, repair the cracks, earn your worth through effort or productivity or perfection. But here's the truth that has been buried under centuries of noise. You were never broken. You were buried. Under beliefs that aren't yours. Under shame you were taught to feel. Under patterns of thinking designed to keep you small, obedient, and tired. The journey of transformation isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. And that begins with watching your thoughts like a silent witness. Not judging. Not chasing. Just watching. That's where awareness starts. And awareness changes everything. The inner engine room. Think of your mind like a massive control room. Most of it runs on autopilot, programmed by your past, your parents, your pain. But in every moment, you are given a brief window to take the wheel. That's what meditation trains. That's what stillness cultivates. Not a blank mind, but a conscious one. And when you start to observe your thoughts, not from inside them, but from a little distance, you'll notice something shocking. Most of them aren't even yours. They're echoes. Scripts. Old ghosts. You've been haunted by thoughts that were never yours to carry. That's the first freedom, realizing you are not your mind. You are the one watching the mind. From there, choice becomes possible. Reprogramming thoughts as code. So how do you change thought? Not by forcing. Not by pretending. But by rewriting. Thoughts are like code. And like any code, they can be debugged. Deconstructed. Rewritten with care, repetition, and precision. Let's say you have the thought, I'm not good enough. You don't attack it. You study it. Where did it come from? What memory keeps it alive? What voice does it echo? And then you begin to speak back, not with toxic positivity, but with truth. I am enough because I exist. I don't have to earn my worth. My value is not conditional. You say it softly. Repeatedly. And at first, it feels fake. Because the old thought has been there for decades. But if you speak the new one often enough, with sincerity, with emotion, it begins to wire itself into your brain. That's not magic. That's neuroscience. Thoughts become beliefs. Beliefs become identity. Identity becomes action. Action becomes reality. The emotional body, the hidden key. But here's what most people miss. Thought alone isn't enough. You must feel the new thought. Emotion is the glue of memory. The amplifier of thought. You can repeat affirmations 1,000 times, but if they're hollow, they won't stick. But cry through one moment of real self-compassion, and your brain rewires. So you go beyond words. You feel the safety of being enough. You feel the release of letting go. You feel the freedom of imagining a future not chained to your past. This is where true transformation happens. Not just in the brain, but in the body. In the nervous system. In the silence beneath it all. The inner ecosystem, watch your input. Your thoughts don't arise in a vacuum. They're shaped by your inputs. So if you want to create new thoughts, start here. What are you reading? Who are you listening to? What kind of media are you feeding your mind? What conversations are normal in your world? If you live in a world where cynicism is cool, where dreams are mocked, where vulnerability is weakness, you will never believe in your own power. But if you curate your inner world, surround yourself with people, ideas, stories, environments that reflect possibility, your mind will begin to grow toward the light. You don't just need to plant new thoughts. You need to protect them. Just like seeds need the right soil, your mind needs the right input to grow anything new. The power of imagination. Imagination is not childish. It is the most sacred tool we possess. It is how you visualize the life you want. The love you deserve. The future you are here to shape. Everything around you was once imagined. Every invention. Every building. Every system. Someone saw it before it existed. So ask yourself. Can you imagine a life where your thoughts are kind? Where your mind is not a battlefield, but a sanctuary? Where fear visits but does not rule? Where the world around you reflects your deepest values? If you can see it, really feel it, you can begin to move toward it. That's how it begins. Not with a bang, but with a vision. The final shift, from reaction to creation. And now, here's the ultimate truth. Your life is not happening to you. It's happening through you. Yes, things happen. Pain happens. Injustice happens. This isn't about blame. But once the moment has passed, once the wound is real, the question is, what do you think next? Because that is where your power lies. Not in avoiding pain, but in choosing your response. Will you stay frozen in the old thought? Or will you become the author of a new one? This is the sacred work. Not just to heal, but to create. Not just to survive, but to lead. Not just to think, but to think clearly. The world needs your mind. Clear, awake, unafraid. In the end, this isn't just about your peace. It's about our planet. Because the future is not being written by governments. It's being written in bedrooms. In classrooms. In quiet mornings. In late-night questions. By people like you. By thoughts like yours. The world you see around you? It didn't start with bombs or policies or billionaires. It started with belief. So the next time you catch a thought drifting across your mind, ask yourself, if this thought became a world, would I want to live in it? Because whether you know it or not, you already do.